The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Quirky Dog Podcast, inspired by some of the quirkiest dogs you can ever imagine and the owners who love them. This podcast is brought to you by the quirky couple themselves, Scott and Jess Williams. Their aim is to educate and entertain. Here's Scott and Jess.
Hi guys, welcome and happy Wednesday. Today we are going to be talking about over-enrichment and dog ownership. A few weeks ago we did a podcast called Accompanying the Dog, and it was very popular. But over-enrichment is different than accompanying and needs to be talked about also.
Is it possible to overly enrich your dog?
I overly enrich you every day, and look what I got.
I'm not complaining one bit.
All right, but first we're going to start with the quirky tip of the day. There he goes. The quirky tip of the day. How many times do you think we've been told, we ask the question, do you crate your dog? And then what do people say? What's the response?
Well, when they were a puppy, they did for a little bit of potty training.
Or if they still use a crate, what's the response?
When they leave the house, or overnight.
Yeah, or both. We use a crate every time we leave. Every time we go to bed, the dog just sleeps right in the crate, no problem. So our quirky tip today.
Personally, I think it's an inhumane device.
Our quirky tip of the day, you and Sweden and Switzerland all together, is crate your dog at least an hour a day when you're home. So if you work, a 9 to 5, if you're going into work again, if your life is becoming more normal, if you've been leaving the house.
From home, especially.
Yeah, yes. If your dog's crated all day during the day because you're gone, fine, do it on the weekends. An hour a day when you're home. If you're working from home, those separation anxiety cases always, if the person works from home, are always greatly enhanced. And then what happens is, I don't want to crate the dog because I'm on a conference call and the dog's barking, yada, yada, yada. So crating the dog while you're home, while you're awake, will be very indicative to you of, can my dog tolerate being in a crate while I'm here? Is there some anxiety going on? Is the dog protesting more? Is the dog barking? XYZ. So try it, do it for us, and it ties into this over-enrichment topic.
I would say if you haven't done it before and you're going to do that for the good of your dog, don't do it when you actually have to be on a conference call, because if there is barking, it's going to be a big problem. You got to do it when you don't need it.
Practice it. But if there is protest, that means that it's something that you should be addressing more and more frequently. Jimmy, he's actually here today. He's hanging out. And
he's in a crate.
He's in a crate, yeah. But Jimmy sleeps out, I would say, most nights now. And
I duct taped his muzzle for the show.
Oh, stop it. Shut up. But he sleeps out most nights. But I'd say every third night, we put him in a crate. Make sure he's fine, not whining, everything else.
Ties into the over-enrichment.
We
rub his feet. We should have put pictures up of us rubbing his feet.
I just have to say how cute this is. Look at how the pig and my phone and my sunglasses are matching. I'm so impressed. This is such a Jess thing. It's really I just saw it and everything came together all at once.
Disturbing. Yeah.
All right, over-enrichment. What does it mean? What is it?
Before we get into that, I'm wearing my Black Sabbath T-shirt today from 2016, the End Tour. We thought that would be the end of Ozzy, but he's still going strong.
Ozzy's still kicking.
Which also leads me, because that makes me think of Sweet Leaf, which was one of my favorite songs. Later in the podcast, I'm going to give you guys a cannabis update on my plants, my little home grow in Maine. I'm excited about that. That's going to keep me hanging in to get through this.
He really is
podcast.
excited about sharing the plant update, and he always talks about it, and he wants to share photos and the whole thing. Okay, so over-enrichment, what does it mean to you?
What does it mean to me?
Yeah.
Just constantly creating games for your dog, constant engagement, living your life for your dog rather than your dog enhancing your life. I guess that would be a short way to describe it.
I would say that's similar to what I think too. And Scott says it a lot in terms of parenting because, Scott's obviously older than me. He was raised in a different generation than me.
It may not be super obvious. But
I'm aging quicker. I age about 10 years every year with him. But he also has had kids, and times change, and the way that people are even parenting is changing. And we have these conversations a lot, especially as it relates to clients who have kids, who also have dogs. And you see it a lot with parenting with children where, the kid is, a lot of people deal with screen time. So that's an issue now. Like, just give the kid an iPad, just give the kid this, occupy the kid's mind, and it's fine. But then they just become a vegetable in front of the screen. So then a lot of people want to limit that. But it's just constant, like, here, let's go over here for this activity. Let's go see this visitor over here. Let me bring you this game over here. Let's check out this show right now. It's just all day long. We're just like creating this life. So it's go, 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 go. And in the back of my mind, I'm almost thinking like, are we maybe creating ADHD in our children? Are we maybe creating this bullshit in our dogs? Like, is it a product of how we are raising them and how we are interacting with them? And we see it all the time with dogs, and it's disturbing. Dogs, have 18 dog walkers and daycare groups and play groups, and it's just their whole life is, every minute of every day is planned out, and there's not a lot of downtime. So that to me is over-enrichment and giving your dog more and trying to occupy their mind and keeping them busy and everything else. And from our personal and professional experience, it comes to bite you in the butt after a while.
Yeah, when you do actually want to take some time for yourself, it's real difficult. You have a very demanding dog that is expecting you to entertain them 24/7.
Yeah, and then they're going to do the protest barking and all this other stuff.
It's the same with the kids, too. It's the same thing
they're
with the kids.
They're not able to be independent. They're not able to have downtime. And I understand that you're not going to get...
With kids, it's not the downtime. It's learning to entertain yourself, to read a book, to play with a game, to build a plastic model airplane or a little model car, all those kind of things that kids did 40 years ago. You don't see that kind of stuff anymore,
Yeah, even playing outdoors, people talk about it as a big
the last thing I wanted to do was hang out with my parents when I was a kid. Jesus.
But we're facilitating...
I'm running down the street at 7 years old.
More and more activities and products and everything else. So a big one, this is a buzz topic for me, and a lot of people don't like my opinion on this, but a big one is the snuffle mat. So if you hadn't heard of it before, you can look it up. And the principle of it is it's basically like this square mat that you put on the ground, and it has a lot of fleece things coming up, and people can feed their dogs in it. I guess it's like a way to hunt around and have food, but a lot of people are using it now for reactivity also, which a lot of people have said it works great for them, and I'm glad, and I'm not trying to knock that for them. For me personally, I don't understand how dogs used to be able to walk down the street and not be reactive, and now they need to walk down the street, and when they see their trigger, you put this mat down and you throw a bunch of food on it. That to me, it seems like a little strange. Like, why did that switch now that we need a mat for the dog to be well behaved on the street? So personally, if it was my dog and I was struggling, I would have my dog hold a sit and work through some of those triggers and make my dog just deal with that situation and make sure they can use it.
I haven't heard that story, but I've been off social media for a while.
You don't even know what a snuffle mat was before we started this podcast.
I'm thinking you're going to wrap the dog's head in it or something. What the hell? How's that going to stop reactivity?
So a lot of people have used it for eating, which I get. It's a way to enrich eating time. Well, I just bought slow feed bowls for our dogs. I want to start feeding all the border collies out all at once in the kitchen, and my girls are like, oh, someone's eating near me, I need to eat quicker, and I don't want them choking on their raw, so I'm gonna every night smash their food down into these slow feed bowls, and they'll be able to all eat loose at night.
That might go better with a snuffle mat.
I don't think with the raw. But my point is, I understand like activities for things like this, everything else. Same thing like with nails. I get if your dog's, persnickety about nails, you do it once, hopefully twice a month. For that one period of time, fine, you put treats in it, you just have the dog manage dealing with something else. But if it's like the way that you depend on having control of your dog outside of a ring at agility trials, for instance, like the dogs are all excited. Okay, here, go hunt in this thing, go do that. That to me is over-enrichment. We're always giving the dog to do. We're always giving the dog something to channel their energy and their drive into. And I'm not saying that that's wrong, but you can also use obedience to do that too. So that to me is like, all right, I don't want to go for a frickin' walk with this big square mat. And if I see something that my dog's going to get excited about, throw it on the ground and throw cookies down. That's not something I'm personally willing to do. So I'm going to work through that other ways. But that is a big trigger for me, this over-enrichment. And they're becoming more and more and more popular. I thought they were just a sport dog thing, but you can Google them. So snuffle mats are a big, red trigger to me. That's too much. It's over-enrichment.
Well, I'm sorry that the snuffle mat triggers you. Because I think that it's a legitimate thing that you can do with your dog. It's if you're constantly if you have a snuffle mat, which is one of 15 things that you have to entertain your dog, that's when it's a problem. Okay, it's snuffle mat time. Oh, it's 10:30. Let's switch over. We're going to do something else now.
And people literally
live like this. Now it's time for your puppy play date. Let's run him down the street and get him in his puppy play date.
People literally function like this. And this isn't anti-puzzles or anything like that.
No, these are good stuff.
It's people, like, how many people still fill a Kong and put a Kong in a crate for the dog when they leave? Like, if that works for you, that's okay. There's actually dispensers of Kongs that you can have outside of the crate that you can time.
Take it easy, babe.
That you can time so the Kongs keep going into the crate.
I'm going to get my dog smoking cigars.
Oh my God. Yeah, apparently Scott's nice and chill. But literally, like, the entire time you're gone, like, okay, a Kong is dispensed. The dog's going to eat through it. Okay, it's been an hour. A Kong is dispensed. What if, like, when the second Kong was dispensed, the dog was napping and the freaking Kong woke it up? Like, why do we need there to be constant Kongs to eat just because you're away from your dog? Like, that's a deeper issue and separation anxiety that needs to be addressed to me.
Well, the Kong manufacturer needs that to happen.
The Kong manufacturer loves it, and that's fine. And I'm not saying, again, that feeding your dog out of a Kong is ridiculous, but if that's the predicator to getting your dog to go into a crate, to be quiet when you walk out of the house, and it's been a few years, maybe you should reconsider that whole system. I don't know. Personally, I just think that it's not creating a lot of balance.
Well, again, I don't have a problem with that either. It's all of them together.
As soon as I agree to show his plants, there's a problem.
I don't think a Kong in the crate is a problem.
I think
everything constantly catering to this dog is the problem.
I don't think a dog should not tolerate being crated without a Kong in the crate.
No, I don't either.
That's my point.
Point taken.
Oh my God. All right. So, Chewies. This is another good one. So how many dogs, I swear to God, we have this like theory.
You mean the website, Chewies?
No, not like giving a dog a Chewy, like how we give Gigi the Chewy on the bed, like a bully stick or something. Okay. So, we have this theory that the really fat dogs who were like previously really anxious, people like are just feeding because when they're fat, they just like sleep and they're bored. But a lot of times a dog that seems like, oh my God, he'll eat all day, every time, every moment, everything else, going. Now the dog's like 40 pounds overweight. Like that's to me always giving the dog a chew because the dog's
hungry.
Yeah.
What the hell you got to do? The dog's hungry. He's got to eat.
The dog barks in the middle of the day. Okay, let's give him a can of food. Let's give him kibble. Like that.
If it was an Italian family, I'd understand.
And if it's just to be kind and show love, that's one thing. But if it's because the dog is just pacing back and forth and the dog just ate breakfast 2 hours ago, it probably doesn't need a Chewy to get through the next 2 hours. It could just go and lay down, go and chill out, go in a crate. Like sometimes if the dog is activating you because it's pacing, it's barking, it's too wound up, it's a telltale sign that the dog needs a little bit of downtime. Like a little quiet time for you and the dog would probably go a long way.
Well, that reminds me of a client I had once whose dog compulsively drank water, and they thought the dog was thirsty. So they'd fill the water bowl, the dog would drink the whole bowl of water, and look at them like, hey, I need more water. And they keep filling the bowl. The dog was like a watermelon. Like you could just like flick the side of its stomach. It was like a drum, just hard. The dog couldn't even move.
It's not good practice. So over-enrichment of Chewies and food and water and all of those things, just be conscious of it. It's not that you can't give your dog a treat. That's not what we're saying. We're saying if the dog finished a greenie and now runs back to you and barks, you shouldn't probably get up and give the dog another greenie.
No, that's when you get the snuffle mat.
That's when you switch up the tactic.
Snuffle mat. That's it.
All right. I'm not even going to mention snuffle mats in the second half, and we are going to get to Scott's pictures here at the end. So when we get back, we're going to have the quirky question and a few more tips on how to avoid over-enriching your dogs.
What makes Kuranda beds chew-proof? Only Kuranda beds have a patented design which secures the fabric inside the frame, making it totally inaccessible to jaws and paws. Your dog can't chew the fabric because we've hidden the edges inside the rails. Dogs love Kuranda beds. See why? Kuranda beds come in a variety of custom sizes. You can even add a fleece pad on top for extra coziness. And these beds can be used both indoors and outdoors. But best of all, our beds are easy to clean. Just wipe them off or hose them down. Visit dogbed.us/thequirkydog for more details.
Oh, his leg's cut off there. Oh, well. All right, we are back. And are you going to do our quirky question?
Yeah, I wanted to say, are we going to get into some more of these over-enrichment things after the question of the day?
Yes.
Because I had some things I want to talk about,
Do you want to write them down?
No, I'll remember. Okay, quirky question of the day. And this is a question that I had a client ask me yesterday. And I get asked this so often that I thought it would be something to bring up here. When can I stop using the tools? This is assuming you've done some dog training with your dog. I don't care what the tools are, if it's a clicker and treats or an electric collar or just a leash and collar, whatever it is, the tools that you have used to create the behavior that you wanted, which now is, to a point where you're very happy with the behavior. Well, when can I get rid of these tools? The dog does what I wanted him to do now, so can we get rid of all of this stuff? And, it seems obvious to me, and when I explain it to people, they seem to think, well, yeah, obviously that's right. But people don't want to use these tools. And the answer is that whatever you use to create a behavior, if you take that, if you're giving your dog treats to get on a dog bed and clicking with a clicker, and then and they're doing it, so now you don't use treats anymore, you throw away the clicker, the treat pouch, all that stuff, the behavior is going to get weaker and it's going to start to go away. You need to have a criteria for the behavior, whatever that is, and hold your dog to that level if you want to maintain it. And I wouldn't suggest never giving your dog a treat again. You can go to random reinforcement of treats if that's the case. If you're using a pinch collar to teach your dog to walk on a loose leash, as an example, if the dog is walking perfectly in a heel or on a loose leash, so you decide not to use the pinch collar anymore, it may last for a week, it may last for 6 months. But eventually something's going to pop up where that dog is going to lunge toward, and of course you're not using your treats anymore either. So now the dog is going to see something that's distracting, and they're going to go for whatever reason after that thing, and it's just all going to start falling apart.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's funny, Scott, mentions the pinch collar and the aversives and stuff, and even that, like the pushback there, like we understand more, but half the people are like, oh, well, when can I not bring the food anymore?
Yeah, I don't want to use treats. It's too much of a hassle.
Yeah, like I don't want to have a pouch. I don't want to have to be, my fingers get all dirty.
I don't have any pockets.
You're not going to go to work and not get paid and keep going to work. You're not going to not go to work and not be fired. Like there's consequence and there's reward for everything that we do in life. And there was a thread going around on Facebook a few months ago, became this big dumpster fire about what is a trained dog. And both threads got taken down because everyone was being all crabby. But the person was arguing a trained dog is 100% reliable with no equipment, no leash, no anything all the time. That's a trained dog. Well, that doesn't exist in our world. I don't know. But someone commented on there, and I loved this phrase, that a behavior is either being trained, maintained, or deteriorating. And it's so true. Like Jimmy is crazy about his crate, like loves his crate, insane, like OCD, big issue. He sleeps in the bed for a month and hangs out on the bed during the day for a few weeks. He runs into the bedroom. He doesn't even go in his crate anymore.
He jumps up on our bed.
He starts digging. Like, oh, here, let me turn the sheets down for you. So, even with him, I'm like, all right, Scott, like, we got to fix this. Now he goes into the crate. We give him some treats. Like, we're trying to build that back up so we actually have some consistency again with the behavior that he was freaking crazy about. So the bottom line is, if it's working, don't think about ditching what's working right away or ever. What's the holdup? If you have to have tools and it all works great and life is harmonious for you and the dog, great.
Well, first of all, be grateful that the dog is actually doing the behaviors you wanted them to do. That's the first thing. Instead of thinking, when can I stop doing all this crap? Because usually when you started doing this training because your dog's behavior was very unacceptable. Now you got it so the dog's behavior is great and you can get into a maintenance program. You don't have to be as crazy. It doesn't take as much time to maintain a behavior as it does to teach a behavior. But there's got to be some maintenance in there,
And you always want to go back to your foundation. So that's our food for thought on that one. We hear it a lot.
Maintenance, baby.
We wanted to mention it. Okay, so over-enrichment. This came also, Scott wrote a blog post last year now called You Can't Outrun Crazy. And it was a really popular blog post. Actually, somebody turned one of his quotes into a meme, another dog trainer. But the bottom line is, like, if you're taking your dog for a run at 6 a.m. and then another one at 5 p.m. and they have a dog walker to come let them out, and then they have a daycare that picks them up 3 days a week, and then they have all these puzzles at night, and it's just everything is becoming more and more and more. In this specific example he was talking about in the blog post, now the dog started waking the owners up at 3 a.m. and being like, hey, like, let's play. Like, they thought, oh, maybe he has to go out. Like, it just became more and more and more, because now if you have anxiety and you're giving the dog a lot of exercise and a lot of outlets, you have a dog with endurance and anxiety. And that's a real problem. Like, a dog can now run 3 miles in the morning and then they recover within an hour. So what? Now they're going to run 5 miles? Like, it keeps growing and becoming a bigger and bigger issue. So this is where the over-enrichment to me is like, hey, maybe you're doing too much. We have very drivey dogs. I mean, like, all of our dogs have a shit ton of drive. That is not true. We have very drivey dogs. And we have a lot of them. And if our dogs have to be in the crate for most of the day because it was a rainy day and we were busy and everything else, they behave just as well that evening and the next day than they would if they had a hike and we played ball with them and we went on a walk through the neighborhood and everything else. Like, that, their behavior is not at all affected by how much we were able to do with them. And I'm not saying that dogs with drive or working dogs or even pet dogs don't need work or they don't need enrichment or they don't need something, but how much is too much? And it's becoming like that nowadays, that we're just constantly coming up with more and more and more and more and more to keep the dogs just at bay. And maybe that isn't aiding us so well into the future. You don't want it to be like, oh God, okay, well, the dog's 12 now, so he's, kind of slowing down. Like, no, the first decade plus isn't supposed to be that strenuous, that hectic. And the dog's probably not in a good headspace.
Yeah, and there's a difference between someone catering to the dog and thinking the dog needs all this stuff, and someone who's doing a ton of activities with their dog because they need to be doing this stuff because of their dog is their whole life, And it can look the same, but it's more rewarding if, let's say you're a dog person, you're an agility competitor, you do a little AKC obedience competition, you're getting into nose work, now you're getting into barn hunt, you're doing all this stuff because you enjoy training your dog. And your dog, on the surface, it could look like, wow, you're doing a lot of stuff for your dog, but really you're doing it for yourself because you enjoy the act of working with dogs and training.
Yeah,
that's
and
different.
The flip side of that is now, okay, we went into quarantine, we have COVID. If you don't do all those things for a week, has your dog fallen apart? Is your dog losing their mind because they don't have all of these outlets? And if the dog is fine either way, fine, spend 12 hours a day doing classes with the dog, doing activities with the dog, whatever you want. But if you're doing these things just to keep the dog
quiet
at a baseline of like, okay, well, he's not going to bother me for a half an hour, then that's where it becomes an issue. What were the things that you were going to mention that you didn't need to write down?
I was thinking about the nose work, but then also the barn hunt. And, nose work is a great activity to get dogs' brains busy, and it tires them out without having to do a lot of physical activity. The mental work is what gets them tired, and it's a great activity. But if you're doing that in conjunction with 15 other things just to keep your dog somewhat calm in the house, it's too much. I mean, you don't need to be doing all that.
And this spills over a little more into dog sports, but you also can't be the jack of all trades. So like, if you want to be good at something, you can probably specialize in, I'd say, 2 or 3 things and be really, really, really good at those things. And, get your dog as competent in that activity as possible, and yourself, and you have a lot of room to grow. You can't be good at 8 to 10 dog activities. Like, not only is it costly and time consuming, you just can't master that many things with one dog. Now, maybe if you own Jimmy Choo, that'd be different, but there's only one Jimmy Choo in the world. Okay, so another thing that pops up often is, the dog walker. Fine, you work, we get it. Dog can't sit in a crate for 8 to 10 hours. How many times does a dog walker have to come? Multiple dog walkers come 2 or 3 times a day. I don't think the dogs need to go to the bathroom that frequently. Maybe just one longer walk in the middle of the day. Like, people are feeling like guilty, like, oh, the dog needs more, he needs more, he needs more. No, he's okay to have a little bit of downtime and just chill out, frankly. Like, that's fine. A lot of people get pissed if the dog comes back from daycare and they're not like dead tired. They're like, oh, he went to daycare, he wasn't tired enough. Like, that isn't their job to make your dog so dead to the world that you don't have to deal with them when the dog gets home. Like, some days it's more strenuous than others. Some days their play groups aren't as crazy. Like, that just happens. This is okay. Like, that's okay. Dogs and getting together with other dog friends. If it's because you want to sit and have coffee with your girlfriend and shoot the shit, fine, do it for yourself. But the dog shouldn't require you to go and make a play date for him a few days a week so he can run around and get his yayas out.
Well, I guess the point is, from my perspective, because I have dog owners ask me these questions all the time, you don't need to be doing this. I mean, they say, how much is enough? How much I have a client just text me and said, I need to get my dog exercise. Can I do this? How much exercise does my dog need? And most of the time you don't need to do as much as what you think you need to do. You have a dog that it depends on the age of the dog. If you have a puppy that's got a lot of energy, usually it's a burst of energy and then they sleep most of the day. And then they wake up and they tear around the house and they get into trouble and then they crash just like a baby, just like a toddler would,
But the thing about that is if you stop doing it, what does the dog's behavior look like? So that's the thing. Like if your dog goes outdoors and just barks all day outside at squirrels and everything else, they're inside, they're barking out the window, they're constantly up, following you around the house, pacing, panting, whatever else. Like that's a sign that they don't need more. Maybe they just need more structure, more stability, more calming. That would be our point to take home there, is that your over-enrichment could be causing your dog to become more and more inconsolable without you raising the, stimulants with the environment and without you raising the activity level and everything else. And that's when you're kind of tipping over to this dangerous zone of like, are you going to run for 10 miles in the morning before you go to work with your dog? One, that's a lot on the dog's joints. And two, how much time do you really have to deal with this dog and provide enrichment for this dog after a while? All right, you want to talk about your plants?
Yeah, I can give a quick update. And I will say, I'm going to put up a picture of my plant so you guys can see it. It's
very
like
proud.
5 or 6 months old now, whatever it is, 6 months almost. But around the country, people are having a lot of trouble with their cannabis crops. In the Northwest, they're having all these crazy fires. Huge acres of cannabis have been wiped out there. In Colorado last week, they had a freak snowstorm, which wiped out many acres of cannabis out there, which sucks for everybody. Keep in mind, this is being used as a medicine for many people. And here in New England, I'm talking to people that are getting now bud rot, bud worms, all kinds of things that happen at the tail end of this crop. When you get into the fall season, it gets more wet, it's getting colder, people are getting mold and mildew, things like that. So it's just an interesting hobby that I have that I've been having a lot of fun with. And, I don't know. There's a mindfulness that comes with growing a plant of any kind of, you people out there that grow flowers and vegetables, you probably already know this, but it's a fun thing to do. And I enjoy it, and I'm almost at the end of it, and hopefully I'll be able to get through this season and
that big
and
plant,
get it done.
That big plant, how tall is that plant?
Yeah, that thing is like 8 feet tall. So
yeah.
I wanted to get a picture of it because I will not allow a plant to grow 8 feet again. I just did it to see what would happen, to see how tall it would get on its own.
Ta-da!
Yeah, but just from working on it and making sure it doesn't have bugs. I mean,
and having to be on a ladder to
you
trim
get up
it.
on a step ladder to look at the top to make sure it doesn't have worms in the buds and all that kind of stuff. It's just it's more of a hassle when you get something like that.
Yeah, but he's had a good outdoor crop. This is his first time growing outdoors, and the trimming is going to be coming up.
Technically, it's not. I grew up in the 70s, and we had a lot of plants growing. One time, I threw a handful of seeds in my mom's garden. And my dad was out there pulling them out, throwing them over his shoulder. He
has quite a green.
There were pot plants everywhere.
He has quite a green thumb, my husband. So there is his plant, and we'll keep you updated. And the trimming is going to be coming next week. We are going to talk about the importance of pet dog manners in sport dogs, and we are going to have a very special guest and a good friend of mine here for that episode. So be sure to tune in. If you need anything from us, studio@thequirkydog.com. And in the meantime, keep it quirky.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.